And I don't think I've met a parent who's got school-aged children in the past month who hasn't been literally tearing their hair out. I mean, their children are at home the entire time. If one pupil tests positive, an entire bubble can be sent home of up to 100 children. I've heard of schools that have been closed completely, and many more are on a knife edge. It's clearly time that this government rethinks this strategy. You cannot basically shut down year groups, huge bubbles, leading to entire schools closing after a year of such disrupted education, of exams being put on ice, of assessments, of exams being cancelled, of children not seeing their schoolmates, and finally they get back to school and lo, one pupil tests positive and the entire class is self-isolating in theory for 10 days. How can this be right? How can this be sensible? How can this be good for the children? I mean, it's almost got to the point where I think they've just got to vaccinate children, 12 to 18-year-olds, so that when a child tests positive, they don't have to send the whole year group home and possibly close the schools. This isn't so much about health, it's about education, which is these children's human right, which is going to be deprived for yet more long weeks during the summer term, when it should be about sports days and you know, end of term things and activities outdoors. And instead, that's yet again something that the younger generation, kids in schools, are being deprived of, are under lacking and are going without. And I just think one little change to that policy could probably solve this huge problem at a stroke. Just make sure the children are safe, they're not transmitting the virus to people in danger, vulnerable groups. Let them get on with their education. But that may be just too much for teachers who run schools and the unions to bear.
Absolutely fed up to the back teeth of all this. I think it's an absolute disgusting way to treat children. They're missing their education. I've got my son who's off for 10 days. Because he's a supposed close contact. And I've been testing him every day and he's come back negative. I don't understand why the government can't test these children every single day in the morning. If they get a negative result through a rapid response, let them go to school.
Hang on. You would test every single child every single day?
I think so, yeah, because that's the only way that they can break the chain of infection and allow children to have an education.
But it's always... Do you not agree that we've now got to accept that COVID will always be here, Natalie? Aren't you horrified when you read that there's 100,000 children now, they're calling the lost children of lockdown? Don't you think we should be trying to do more to get them in the class rather than find out ways to keep them out of class?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I'm just saying, as a temporary measure, at the minute, with them saying that it's spreading through classes as a temporary measure, they should be testing them.
Right, OK. And then if you have I'm sure you know what a false positive is, and there are a high number of false positives. So that is to say the child comes down as positive, but they're not actually positive. All you're going to do is just deny more children more education for no valid reason, of course. No?
Well, I mean,
I know it's desperately difficult. I agree.
If they're using the lateral flow test in other circumstances, why aren't they using them? Why is it? They can use them in education.
I've been self-isolating for 3 weeks because I do have COVID, but I have missed so much education, so much. Online learning is not the same. It is so hard to do. And it's so hard seeing those concessions being made to sporting events. And it feels like there's nothing for us. For once, we need something, because I'm in year 12 now. My A-levels are next year. I need help. There are going to have to be changes made to that exam. But, I pray that there isn't another lockdown next winter. But if there is, I don't know what I'll do. Will I do my A-levels?
So, Jess, you have your friend's case is that she had to isolate for 10 days, went back into school for a day. Oh, brilliant, she's back, she can see her friends again. And then got pinged again?
Yeah, because she told me that she was sitting about 5 seats away from that person, but obviously it's like the direct contact. It doesn't really take into account like the seats. It's just if you're like next to that person. and then she had to go off again. And like all my friends, they're off now. If you ask everyone in my year, they would have said they've been at least once, especially back in September, December, where like more than half my year was off. I was in my form. There were like 7 of us, maybe 8 out of like 20.
And you can't do anything during this self-isolation, can you? It's not that you just can't go to school. You can't meet up with friends. You can't go out and about. You've got to stay at home.
Yeah, that's it. 3 weeks I've been in the house. I've got another week to go. But yeah, it's very hard.
How have you felt, Jess? Having COVID is not great. How have you felt?
It's super hard. Like even because I've only just got it, so I've been doing online lessons, and it's just not the same because the teachers have to focus on the class that they're teaching in person. That they don't ask you questions. It's just not as engaging, and you just lose all motivation to do anything. Like obviously you've got A levels in mind, but you're just like, it's hard. I'm so sick of it. We had the lockdown in January, and it's just. Well,
do you know what, Jess? Listen, I completely understand that you are sick of it. Your classmates and your friends must be sick of it. Your mum and your dad, they must be sick of it. Everybody is sick of this rule now. So if I could offer you you're in charge, Jess. You're the health secretary. You're the prime minister. What would you replace this rule with, if anything?
I don't know, because I feel like there is definitely a need, because it is rife in my school, but I just think the direct contact thing, that they need to look closer at like who is actually sitting next to that person, and that if you have had COVID, because will you have to self-isolate again if you've been at school? Because that's quite a fear for me, that I'll go back and I'll have to self-isolate again even though I've had it. But I just want a lot more focus on us, and like, we had the shambles in August. I just want more support and more concessions made for us rather than sport.
Yeah.
Chris, you're on the radio.
Hi.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
So my son is in year 10 at a school in Bristol.
Yes.
He is currently isolating. His whole year has been sent home, 300 children.
Oh, boy.
One individual tested positive.
300 children for one. Am I getting this right?
You're absolutely right. And basically, of those children, 160, including my son, have been told to go into isolation. Now, we actually know who the child is, actually, who has tested positive, and basically he sits in one class with that particular student. He sits nowhere near her. The irony was, the day that he was told to isolate, he'd actually done a COVID test that morning saying he was negative. So the whole thing is frankly farcical.
And what are parents saying? Okay, you're a parent. What do you and others say about this then, Chris?
Well, I draw the parallel that, in 2 weeks' time, myself and my son hopefully are going to go off to the Festival of Speed at Goodwood. Now, we have to do COVID tests. I'm double jabbed. He will have to do a lateral flow test, and they will accept the lateral flow test is negative and allow him entry. Or if we went to a football match, he would be allowed to do the same thing. Yet, if he's at school and he's being tested, they don't seem to accept the fact that he's negative, or children are negative until they are positive, in which case they're basically sent home. I'm also aware of one school in Bristol where some of his friends attend, who a week ago had children coming back following 10 days of isolation, and they were made to sit on the AstroTurf for an hour and a half because there was another case.
God, there's got to be something more sophisticated or nuanced than this, doesn't there?
Well, I mean, and the parallel to this, of course, the joke is that you have Gavin Williamson on TV the other morning saying that they will be doing exams next year. It's frankly farcical.